Hey guys, welcome to Coffee with Megan, where I get to chat to people in the fashion industry who are using their platform for good. Today I'm going to talk to my friend Jena Goldsack, a fellow model, and she's super passionate about marine life and sustainability and actively posts about it on her social media. She did a really amazing trip to Iceland where she got to swim with beluga whales, which was featured in Vogue, and we're going to talk all about that. I hope you enjoy. So obviously right now we are in quarantine time. So Jena, tell us where you are and what you're doing and how you're spending your time.
I am in my mum's bedroom right now in Cornwall in the south of England. So this is where I grew up. So I came here just before the lockdown. So I've been here for 3 weeks now, and luckily we live right on the ocean. So I can walk my dog every day and not see anyone. I haven't actually seen another person apart from my parents for like 17 days now.
Yeah.
I'm sure you feel the same way with Vince, but
Oh no, it's even tougher here in Cape Town because we've been here for coming up to 3 weeks, and the lockdown is like severe. We can't even go for a walk, so we're starting to feel a little cabin fever. Like in 3 weeks we've the store, so it's a little bit tough. But
yeah, I'm going to suggest to you that you should get a paint by numbers, but you can't even get it delivered.
No,
because I've nearly finished mine. I've got my second one on the way. I've been jotting down some ideas of stuff I want to do after we get out of lockdown, and I guess this is what this also is as well.
No, it's a perfect time.
The thing is, I'm not stressed about it yet because it's so out of my control. And it's the whole world. It's not that I'm not working because of what I look like right now or something, but it's the fact that all of us are in the same boat, and hopefully the majority of people will get help for missing payments and funds and whatever. So
that's the tough thing. Okay, so you are obviously, we met in the fashion industry. We both work as models, I think probably 8 years ago now. I was thinking
babies.
we were babies. Let's hear a little bit about how you became a model and like how that all started for you.
So I got scouted. I was doing my friend's graduate fashion show in Falmouth, which is in Cornwall, and she had spent hours on this dress. And there was a woman there called Sophie Anderton who scouted me. She was doing something for charity. She scouted me, asked me to join an agency who actually declined me. And then after that, I think I left it a few months, and then sent in my pictures to Models One, and I've been with them since. So it's been maybe 8 or 9 years. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. And so over the past couple of years, over social media, I've seen you've become a lot more vocal about your passion for the environment, and especially marine life and animal protection. Is it something that you grow up passionate about, or is it something like more recently you learn more about, or was it something that you've always loved?
I think it was ingrained in me since I was a child, because we used to live down the hill from where we are now, and we had lived on the beach. And I remember I only lived there until I was 5, but the one thing I can remember is we were on like the 3rd floor flat, and we looked out at the sea and I could see dolphins, and that was like my view every morning, and that was normal for me. And my dad was a fisherman. My whole family have kind of grown up on boats, so like even me going fishing with my granddad, it was, I guess, slowly being ingrained in my brain. But then I turned into a teenager, didn't care about anything obviously, and then when I started getting more followers on Instagram, I was like, what am I doing this for? I need to speak out about something. And then I guess you learn on the way as well, and going to places like remote places for shoot locations, you see how much plastic affects these remote places that can't afford to do anything about it. And I think that started ingraining on me just traveling. And then, because I feel like a lot of people, if you're in a city and you never leave that city, you're like, oh, where's all the plastic pollution? We only see it on David Attenborough. And it's not until you see it firsthand that you probably start to care about it way more, which is a little like this whole corona thing. Like, people are still going outside because it hasn't affected them yet.
Unless
it affects them, you do something about it. So it started as a kid, I guess, but I didn't really pay much attention to it until the past few years when I saw how bad it was getting. And the same for environment, and I've always loved whales. Like when my granddad died, I spent my whole childhood with my granddad. The day he died, or the day after he died, my dad was out in his fishing boat, and he loved whales as well. And he found a whale that was caught in a net. So he had to cut the whole whale out of the net.
Yeah.
And when it realized it had been saved, it started breaching and flying around in the water for him. And my mum's adamant that was kind of like my granddad's like soul animal, spirit animal. Yeah. So whales are my thing. Yeah.
And you're an ambassador for the Sea Life Trust, is that right? Did I say that right?
Yes.
Is that something like, how do you get involved with them? Is that something local?
So they're actually the Sea Life owns a seal sanctuary in Cornwall, which I grew up going to. I've known it forever, and they take in injured seals and rehab them, or if there's like a blind one, they're a deaf one. So if they can't ever leave, they'll stay there for life. It's like an old people's home, I guess, but for seals. So I've known about it forever, and then my agency asked me if I wanted to get more into charity work, and I was like, yeah, this is one that's the closest and the one that I know about, so it would make sense. So I joined them, and there's not that much I could have done for them unless I am in Cornwall and go there and post about it. But so I was posting about a little, and then they recently, their other charity, which is called the Beluga Whale Sanctuary, they had just moved 2 whales from China to Iceland that they rescued from captivity in an aquarium. Okay. So they moved them over, and I was like, great, I can post about this, but posting for me is still not enough. Yeah. Because I mean, the whole world can post, but again, until you see it firsthand, that's when you really, really care, I guess. Yeah. So a friend of mine, she's a photographer, and she saw it in my Instagram bio, and she was like, what is this? Tell me something about it. And luckily, she's really intrigued in me. Yeah. And so I explained, and she was like, can we go over there and do a shoot with them and kind of get the message out that this outdoor sea area, they're fenced in, so they're still in their own environment because they've been in captivity their whole lives. They can't be released into the ocean because that would probably kill them. So they're in this outdoor area, and it's the world's first outdoor sea aquarium. Yeah, that's awesome. But she said, can we go over and do a shoot with them? I was like, I think so, yeah. So I asked, and they were like, yeah, of course, come over. So we went over, and we ended up doing this really beautiful shoot with them, and I was lucky enough that they trusted me enough to get in the water with them. So yeah, I mean, you're sure you've seen the pictures, which is great. And then we posted it in Vogue.com. Yeah, they were nice enough to.
Did you pitch the story to them?
Yeah, so we didn't really know what way it was going to go until it was done, and we didn't want kind of a whole team there because the less people, the better in these situations, especially with wild animals. Like, they're not there to perform for anyone anymore. So we thought if a stylist was there, she would make me want to get changed the whole time. And I was like, no, I just want one wetsuit. Yeah. Not getting changed, no fuss. It's just me and the photographer and her husband, who's a videographer. So it's just easier. So then if we pitched it to someone before, they would want to get involved. So we're like, okay, let's just go by ourselves and see who wants it. And we had a few options, but I think Vogue is probably the best for us because it does connect the fashion world to the environment world and the activist world, and they like to cover both. Yeah. So it was great. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's really like touching on a point I wanted to make, how you posting this on social media, like this connected you to this photographer to make this happen. It's like having a real positive influence. I know you go on lots of trips. Do you find the reaction from you posting, actually being on these trips, do you get like a positive reaction from that? Is there a lot more interest?
When I was in Iceland posting, and I made a whole point of kind of writing down what the situation was just to make sure people knew I wasn't exploiting. And I still got messages from people saying, you're worse than the documentary Blackfish, about SeaWorld. And I got people saying they're still in captivity, and I was like, you obviously don't have any education on this because you realize that how much these are cared for. There's a whole team 24/7, and hardly anyone there is actually from Iceland. They're from America, from England, from China. They moved over with the whales because they wanted to be with them forever. And and they care for them so much, and they don't perform tricks anymore. And this is,
Yeah.
it's an experiment because it's never been done before, but there's no reason why it kind of wouldn't work being put in this area in the ocean. And the whole base of us going was so more and more people got to know about this charity and supported it, and to show that there is another option for whales in captivity. So there's room for up to 10, and there's only 2 there at the moment. So the more people know about it, the more aquarians can be like, oh, we can send these here. So for the most part, everyone's obviously very supportive, but there's always a few trolls who I like to put in their place.
Well, no matter what, it gives you more of a reason to give people more information on it and prove them why they're wrong. And it's starting a conversation, and I think that's what the most important thing is about your voice on social media, is you're starting the conversation with people about the environment where they might have not even like thought about it. So
Exactly.
I think it's awesome. It's sometimes I do find a little bit of a conflict with being in the fashion industry and having an environmental passion, and it can be, for me as well, it can be a little bit difficult. Do you sometimes struggle with that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a hypocrite all the time. I did something for Topshop, actually. I know you did after as well. And someone commented saying, this isn't very green of you doing Topshop. But my argument is, there's not models that are green and want to help the environment. So if I don't do it, they'll take the job. If no models did it, they'll just put it on a mannequin instead. Like high street especially, people buy that because it's cheap, because it's easy. So that won't ever stop, but you have to support them if they, for like H&M, I know, do a sustainable line, and like it's slowly becoming more and more. So you do have to support them if they do decide to do it. But with stuff like that, we're just doing a job, and if we don't do it, someone else will.
The ability and the means to then follow your passion, which is have more of a voice. So I think it's I
mean, going to Iceland, I paid for it personally. The photographer paid for it personally. It cost us thousands in total, and that was all paid for by modeling. So it's a bit of a catch-22, and people call us a hypocrite for doing stuff when without it, like I'm also a ambassador for Oxygen 7, which plants trees, especially in like bushfire affected areas. So planting trees in the Amazon and Australia and Malibu. And I said to one of the founders, I was like, do you not ever feel like a hypocrite for flying places and then planting trees? And he was like, if we don't do it, no one else will. So you have to sacrifice that flight. And by the way, most of us, or most people I know, do try and do their carbon footprint with their flight. So it's carbon neutral if possible. And I think at least we are doing something, which is better than nothing. Because
being conscious and raising as much awareness,
especially with having a following, like you're showing a good example to younger people as well, and older people. If they ever want to change their minds on things, they'll be like, oh, this person did this, so I can do this too. So
no, I completely agree. And so you are an ambassador also for Oxygen 7, you're saying. Like, how do you, if there are people who want to get involved, are you approaching them, or what's like a good advice to give to someone if they would like to get more involved and be an ambassador?
I think with things like Oxygen 7 and the Sea Life Trust, they would always check their Instagram messages, for instance. And even if you visited like the seal sanctuary that's down here in Cornwall, for instance, that you could speak to anyone there, and they'll pass you on to a social media team, and then you can kind of go from there. But for the most part, even an email, everyone's going to check their emails because everyone wants to get involved with people that care.
I think just
there's a whole community.
Approaching people, I think people are almost too scared to ask sometimes. So if you have
I mean if I see, like, for instance, there's a girl in LA who I know, I've seen her at a few events, and we're not close, so I would say hello to her and stuff, but I know she's involved with the environment, but not necessarily with Oxygen 7. So when they were going to plant some trees in Malibu, I'd message her knowing she lived in LA and be like, by the way, we're doing this if you want to join. And she did want to join. So there's definitely girls who I know are maybe like vegans and always posting about the environment, or so I will always kind of message them or send, especially to friends.
Really awesome at that. You're really awesome at putting people together with
I'd love to plug it. I'm like, sorry guys, here's more DMs for you.
I know we spoke about possibly going to Costa Rica with the
Yeah.
actually would be happening right now. With
Oh,
the sea turtles, I know.
I'd love to be.
How do you find some of these trips? Is it mostly through social media and just like a community that's sharing it?
Word of mouth a lot. Like
Yeah.
people, I think once you're kind of known in the eco world, is that a thing? That place? People kind of like, oh, let's just send it to you. Let's send it to you. Like, who was it that told me? Oh, I was actually at a bar in Sydney.
Yeah.
In February, and a friend of a friend was talking about it, and she was like, oh, Jena, you like the environment, there's this trip in Costa Rica happening. And then that's how it randomly happened. But for the most part, I always check the creepy area of my DMs, just in case any brands or anything have sent something through to do with that.
That's awesome. So you are seeing, and I am seeing, I mean, there's still a long way to go, but there is positive change within the fashion industry, whether it's like your agency who are pushing you to be linked to this charity and have a voice in that way. And it's the same with my agency in New York. They're so passionate about the environment. And I think this is really awesome to see, like, it is developing. People are becoming more aware and conscious. Do you feel like it's becoming in the fashion industry a bit more of a thing people talk about?
Slowly, I feel worldwide. I think London, well, my agents in London especially, they're very eco-conscious, and it seems to feel like they're a bit ahead of like the New Yorkers for me. I know the lines for you. I know that like they don't allow plastic bottles or anything, which is in the agency, which is great. But it's slow, and I think like I went into a place in Paris with my keep cup, and they were like, what is that? And I'm like, oh guys, come on. Come on, because they just get those tiny little plastic espresso things, don't they?
And you're like,
and I think
Londoner has their own cup. I feel like in London, sorry.
Exactly. You can't, there's some coffee shops that don't even allow you to get a coffee unless you have your own cup now, which is great. And I'm sure they take a hit from sales, but it's worth it in the long run for the world. But it's a slow thing. And I think until you see people with their cups and then you feel like the odd one out without it, maybe you're like, oh, they've got one, maybe I should have one.
And I feel like feeling like that in London. There really is.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost more fashionable and more cool to have your cup than to be seen with a paper cup. And I feel like that hasn't quite hit New York yet, or the industry we're in. So
yeah, I agree. I think LA is really good for it. I was really surprised at how little plastic straws are in LA now. I don't know if it's even a law that they got banned, or everywhere I go has paper straws especially. So New York's got a lot of catching up to do. Even at fashion weeks in London, I don't know about the rest of Europe, but I think there were a few shows where plastic was banned, and the same within New York actually, because I think spring we're using boxed water, and it's slow, but people like to follow a trend, and that's the same with the fashion industry. Like, it's trendy right now to make a sustainable range, so even if it's just a fad for some people, hopefully it'll extend from there.
As long as people start supporting it and getting behind it and making that when they do those trends, making sure they're as successful as possible, so we can.
And I mean, for me, I haven't shopped in a high street store for a long time. Like this is from a vintage store. It was like $30, and it's my favorite top. But I only really shop.
Oh, sorry, I was going to ask, what are some of your favorite vintage? I know you're like a good online hunter. What are some of your favorite?
There's Nanin Vintage on Instagram, which is where, I send all my clothes to Sadie's address first. That's like, she's got a load of my stuff from there now because I haven't been able to pick it up. And in New York, there's Round 2 Vintage, which is in the Lower East Side, so I live really close to it. And there's one in LA as well. And there's also Metropolis, which I think we all know, which is, I think it's moved to Broadway now in New York. What else is there online?
I like the Real Real. I mean, I've actually found some really good stuff at Real Real for when we're going to like gown events. It can be a struggle because it's like it can be expensive as well, or you get stylish.
You don't want to rent a dress for $500. It's ridiculous.
But on
I love the Real Real. Wow. I love the Real Real, and I I've sent all my clothes there, like anything designer I don't even want anymore, because I'm like, why do I have this? It's a waste of money, I don't use it. So I've sent it to them, so they pay me for buying it, and then I also buy off them as well. So it's like a whole circle of recycling things. And my favorite bag I got from the Real was $300, and it was a Louis Vuitton bag from like the 60s, and it's pristine. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. There are so many. And do you have any brands, as in like doesn't have to be fashion brands, could be like product-based brands or anything that you are really loving right now that have a good impact? Anything you've come across?
I just bought, we all know I love my biker shorts.
Yeah.
I just bought some mint green shorts from Girlfriend.
Okay.
Girlfriend?
Yeah, no, Girlfriend, off Revolve.
Yeah, so I think it's made of like 17 plastic bottles, so it's all sustainable, which is great. And I love Reformation because it also tells you your like how much water is used for what, and like what goes through the process of them getting their jeans, and what you've saved on, and the carbon footprint, which is good. And I'm glad I get to work for them as well, so it kind of adds to it.
I'm just seeing if there's anything else I wanted to ask you.
Anything about cups?
One other. Oh well, you'll soon have one of our cups, Jena, very soon.
Right.
I wanted to ask, is there any bucket list trips? I don't think I asked you this question, did I? Left that you a place like all these amazing places you've been to. I saw you in Australia recently as well. Is there a bucket list trip you have that you really want to do when we're allowed to travel again?
There's an ocean scientist in Hawaii called Ocean Ramsey. I don't know if that's her real name, but I love it. And she's a model and a scientist, and she swims with great white sharks, and she has a real connection with these sharks. And she does tours in Hawaii where she takes you out on her boat, and you can go and swim with these tiger sharks, hammerheads, great whites, and you can just be in the water with them. And it's to prove and to show that these sharks aren't out to get you, because I think over millions of sharks per year get killed, especially for shark fin soup. But without sharks, they're at the top of the ecosystem. So without sharks, the whole ocean's going to go to shit. So she just wants to show that they're not as bad as they are in Jaws, for instance. And my other one is I want to go to this place in the French Polynesia where you can coral garden. I think you can also do it in Belize. I might have mentioned it to you about Belize before. Yeah, you can just do it snorkeling, but I've just taken my divers. I've just finished my whole divers qualification, so I can do it diving as well and stay down there for a while. But you can do it snorkeling, and they get pieces of coral that are still live, and they attach it to like a big grid that's under the water. So it's still quite shallow because you're just snorkeling, and you attach it, and it actually grows quite fast for coral anyway. So I'd love to help do that as well and get the corals restored back to what they were.
Yeah, no, I'd love to see that. It's such a beautiful trip to do. We should definitely do that soon.
Yeah, I think also being in lockdown, it like you're yearning to go and do something else.
I'm actually I'm doing my PADI now, learning it too, so I can get diving as soon as we are. Yeah, hopefully.
Well, there's this thing called Divers Against Debris as well, where you can they send you like a little plastic. I don't know if it's plastic actually. That would kind of defeat the point. It's waterproof. It's a waterproof bag, which is like a trash bag, and they give you it, and you can go when you go diving, you can pick all the trash up from the ocean bed. So come with us.
Definitely, be so down. Thank you, Jena. It was so awesome.
Thank you.
And and we'll do it again soon.
Enjoy your Cape Town lockdown experience.
Stay safe.
Bye. See ya.